Right now in Florida, frozen iguanas have become a joke online. But what looks like a statue on sidewalks is a living animal that can't defend itself. I've watched people stacking them up in piles, tossing them into bins, laughing for photos like if it's a scavenger hunt. And I keep thinking to myself, this isn't wildlife management. This is like entertainment built on something that can't move. When temperatures drop into the 40s, iguanas enter something called torpor. Now, we understand torpor with hummingbirds, right? We talked about that on the last video. We know they're alive, fragile, and deserving care, but the only difference here is that iguanas have scales and not feathers. Their metabolism slows down so much that they can't flee, they can't react, and they can't show pain the way a warm animal would. Frozen doesn't mean they don't feel anything. It means that they're powerless. We would never do something like this to hummingbirds. A hummingbird in torpor is something we guard. An iguana in torpor just becomes a big joke. The biology is the same, it's only our bias that's different. Think of torpor like your phone being on 1% battery. The body is alive, but every system is dimmed to survival mode. An iguana in that state can feel touch, cold, injury, but it has no ability to escape it. Think about being in surgery when they give you that drug that paralyzes you, but you can't move, and you can't speak, and you can't react. And suddenly you feel the surgeon doing something to you and you can't say anything about it and you're awake. It's a terrifying thought, isn't it? I can only think of this when I see the cold stunned iguanas and people just throwing them around like that. Dr. Doug Mader, one of the world's leading reptile veterinarians, has been very blunt about this. He's told us that putting iguanas in a freezer is cruel. Ice crystals form in the muscle and the brain before death, causing considerable pain, and shooting them is only humane if it's an immediate, precise headshot. Anything else is prolonged suffering. And here's something that a lot of people don't really know. He corrects another huge misconception. Iguanas are folivores. They're just leaf eaters. They aren't a prey species, and they're not an apex predator like the Everglades pythons. They don't hunt birds or mammals. At most, they can occasionally become opportunistic if food is scarce, but that's not their natural diet. And let's keep it real. In South Florida, the leaves are barely ever scarce. There's always stuff for them to eat. And even if they're eating leaves on trees, that stuff just grows right back. It's just like when you cut your tree back and leaves grow again. It's not a huge deal. Dr. Mader calls them naturally invasive exotic in the Keys. This area is actually the northern edge of their historic range. After Hurricane Wilma, iguanas rafted from the Yucatan to the dry Tortugas, naturally, not from the pet trade, because I don't think anybody went to dry Tortugas and brought their green iguanas with them and left them there. It just didn't go down like that. And newspapers have actually recorded green iguanas in Key West since 1930, long before they were ever sold in stores. Now here's something that people seem to get confused every time. The word invasive doesn't mean the same thing for every species. We've got invasive birds, we've got invasive reptiles, we've got all kinds of invasive animals, right? But again, we can't put them all in the same category. Burmese pythons and tegus in the Everglades have been documented to devastate native wildlife. Mammals disappearing, nests destroyed, ecosystems altered, right? But green iguanas are different. They are eaten by hawks, owls, snakes, dogs, raccoons, etc. I think we've all seen that. Haven't y'all seen hawks carrying green iguanas in the air? Yeah, I've seen it plenty of times. Their impact is just mostly localized, not ecological collapse. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, oh, well, iguanas are destroying foundations and seawalls and infrastructure and butterfly gardens and native trees and all of that, right? So people say cruelty is justified. And yes, I'm not saying that it's not true that they can dig burrows that undermine landscapes and seawalls. And that can mean that they're nibbling butterfly host plants like any other herbivore would. But nuisance damage is not the same thing as ecological devastation. Raccoons tear apart attics and roofs, and we don't declare war on raccoons. Squirrels chew through wiring and cause house fires, but we still treat them as wildlife, not targets for humiliation. Parrots strip mango trees and almond trees in Miami every year. Yet no one is suggesting that we pile them in trash cans. Property conflicts with almost every species living near humans. Key deer eat lots of foliage in native trees and big pine every year, but nobody's saying we should decimate them. I hear resident complaints all the time in big pine about key deer eating their garden and all of their native trees. Property conflicts happen with almost every living species near humans. The response is management, not mockery. And most burrow issues are localized to seawalls and yards, not citywide collapse. And there are humane solutions. Modify your habitat, professional exclusions, deterring planting, and repairing walls rather than attacking animals in torpor. And as for butterflies, iguanas are leaf eaters. They're not insect predators. If a caterpillar disappears, it's far more likely that it was eaten by a cardinal, a wasp, ants, or lizards like anoles, the same native predators that have always been part of the system. I've literally seen gray kingbirds and other flycatchers catch butterflies in mid-air and eat them, okay? But we're not trying to pile those up either on sidewalks. Blaming iguanas for every missing chrysalis is like blaming manatees for cloudy water. So just remember, even when animals are an inconvenience to us, that doesn't erase their capacity to suffer. Infrastructure problems deserve engineering solutions, not cruelty toward a cold, stunned creature on the sidewalk. And may I remind you, I live in the Florida Keys. This is the iguana capital of the world. I've had iguanas eat my plants. I've had them in my yard. I've dealt with them for a very long time, and they've never caused a huge impact to me. They just hang out. They're not really causing any problems. There's a few of my plants that they've eaten before, but honestly, I planted enough stuff and my butterfly garden is never touched. If you don't have a lot of foliage or a lot of stuff for them to eat, I could see how it could be an issue, but you just have to be strategic. And I'm not really worried about it. It's just nature. So invasive does not mean anything goes. Biology still matters, and so do ethics. Even FWC guidance during cold events warns people not to bring stunned iguanas inside or mishandle them, because they can revive suddenly and suffer and injure someone. You don't want a cold iguana waking up in your house, trust me. That will be a disaster for you. Humane handling requires training, not social media pileups. We can't just normalize this thing. And humane doesn't mean legal. It means minimizing fear, pain, and distress. Professionals use sedation and controlled methods, the opposite of freezers, trash bins, or backyard experiments. So there's a lot of myths that go around about green iguanas, and let's talk about a couple of them. So the first myth is that green iguanas attack people. What's the reality? Well, that's 100% not true. Have you ever tried to catch a green iguana? Yeah. It runs fast as lightning. Like, you're not going to catch one. The next myth is that they eat birds. As we talked about with Dr. Mater, they're primarily leaf eaters. And the last myth is that they don't have any predators. Well, the reality, like I said, hawks, owls, snakes, raccoons, lots of stuff eats green iguanas, and all of us have seen this. And another thing I hear people say all the time is, oh, they eat bird eggs, they decimate nests, and they're just killing all the native birds. Well, you know what? So do crows, so do blue jays, raccoons, the feral cats in your neighborhood. But we don't pile up hawks on sidewalks or laugh at raccoons and throw them away in trash cans. We just don't do that. Predation happens in nature. Have you ever seen BBC Earth or National Geographic? It's pretty gruesome. But the difference is we don't call it evil when it's an animal we like. And with iguanas, even that accusation is mostly a myth. Dr. Mater explains that they're leaf eaters first. They're not just raiding nests all the time. And sometimes I wonder if the real problem isn't what iguanas do, but what they are in our eyes. They're reptiles. They're not furry. They're not feathered. They're not cute, and because we don't understand them, we fear them. You know, we would never treat invasive parrot species in Miami this way. Even though they strip all our fruit trees and eat all our avocados, we would never just pile them up on the street and laugh at it and make videos about it. We don't demonize raccoons for raiding nests. We don't shoot hawks for being hawks and eating warblers and songbirds, right? It's what they do. And the thing is iguanas don't even do that. So why is cruelty acceptable when the animal has scales instead of feathers? When the face isn't beautiful by human standards? I'm a birder. I care about native wildlife too. I do. But wanting a healthy ecosystem and humane treatment aren't opposites. We can have both. Dr. Mater's guidance is simple. Don't put them in freezers. Don't handle them like objects. Don't turn suffering into content. If action happens, it must be professional and humane. Listen, you don't have to love iguanas to treat them with dignity. You just have to be human. How we treat the most helpless creature in front of us says more about us than about them. Torpor doesn't change just because an animal isn't cute to you. Share the science instead of the joke.